I'm here to talk about basic income. Here's how Bertrand Russell described it over 100 years ago. A certain small income, sufficient for necessaries, should be secured for all, whether they work or not. And a larger income should be given to those who are willing to engage in some work which the community recognizes as useful. On this basis, we may build further. It's a mild reform. If we do basic income and nothing else, we simply have a market economy where income doesn't start at zero. And an economy where income starts at zero is what we have now. And that is a cruel economy. When you come of age, if you can't find a job, if you're not eligible for some sort of government assistance, you don't do what you're told, your default position is that you start with no income whatsoever and no access to resources where you can produce your own life. The reason that the homeless don't build their own shelters is because they're not allowed to. The police will knock them down because they don't own any land or resources to build shelters out of. We all of us, except for the most wealthy among us, start in this default position where we must get a job to survive. And that might sound good. Hey, everybody should work. But it's not just work. We've made it impossible for people to work for themselves. What we mean when we say work in the world today is not doing things for yourselves. It is doing things for your employer, doing things for somebody with enough wealth. And wealth is just the stuff that we make out of resources. Someone with enough wealth to employ you to work for them. Now, you might be able to work for a bunch of different people as clients and so-called be your own boss, but these clients have to be people with money. And the more money they have, the better able they are to keep you alive. You have to work for someone with the wealth to keep you alive because we don't allow people direct access to resources to survive. This makes us a unique species in the world. There are no animals in the world where one animal has to ask another animal for permission to use the environment to keep themselves alive. Humans are the only ones who figured out this institution. And humans didn't figure this out in very late in our history. For the first 200,000 years or so that fully developed humans, fully evolved humans were on this earth, our ancestors had direct access to the resources they needed to survive. They could hunt, they could gather, they could fish, they could farm, they could scavenge, they could build their own shelters, and they could build whatever they wanted out of what they could find. Today, none of us are allowed to do that unless we are wealthy. We do not have an economy where we all must work to survive. And we do not have an economy where we all must work for each other. We have an economy where we all must work for somebody higher on the economic scale than we are until we reach a certain level of wealth, and then we get this power. What basic income is the power of everyone to say, if you want me to work, you're going to have to make it worth my while. And that is the power to say no. The power to say no, not just to one employer, but the power to say no to anybody who wants to be your employer. We have a cruel economy where we say, if you don't like the wages and working conditions that are out there, we are going to deny you access to the resources that you could use to keep yourself alive, to build a house, to build a shelter. You won't have any of that if you don't work for the wages and working conditions we put forward. We pretend that there's this big incentive problem. Well, the poor are too lazy to work if we don't have this work incentive where you're going to be homeless if you don't work. What a cruel economy, but also an unrealistic economy. An unrealistic idea of the incentive problem we have. The incentive problem we have in the world today is that employers don't have a good incentive to pay people good wages and to pay people good wages and give them good working conditions. Basic income fixes that incentive problem by saying to employers, people aren't going to starve to death. If you want them to work for you, you've got to give them better wages, better working conditions. You've got to pass on the benefits of of any economic growth you get. As we've dismantled the welfare state over the last 50 years, wages have stagnated, not just for the people at the bottom end, but way, way up into the middle class, almost up to the whole 99%. That most of the gains of economic growth in the last 40 or 50 years have gone to the top 1 or 2%. The rest of us, most of the rest of us are no better off than our parents were 40, 50 years ago. And that's because we have an incentive problem. Basic income fixes that incentive problem by creating a market economy where we're not so cruel as to threaten people with starvation if they don't play the game. We simply have them consume a little less than everybody who is. And that's why I think you should join me in supporting basic income. Thank you.